You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Thou hast forbidden.
Hey, Jeepers. Welcome to show 209 of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. And yes, we actually have Scott, really, at the other microphone. Isn't that amazing? He's alive and well, and rumors of his untimely demise or demonic possession, didn't happen. Anyway, I'm the engineer, the guy who, uses the right tools, follows the instructions, usually more or less. And if I don't, and I choose to be creative, I know I'm responsible for what happens. And over there is the long lost, missed one show, Scott. Cricket.
The person you're trying to reach is currently unavailable right now due to the fact that his neck decided to leave the chat, rendering his poor body unconscious and it racked into a serious amount of pain. Probably needed a rack, to be honest with you, to stretch me back out to my size. Hi, I am Scott. I am the slapstick parts guy. We're on a continual mission to not sneeze anymore. I advise anybody over the age of 45, careful sneezing. We are not 19 anymore. With that, as always, we will share what works for us as well as what didn't, like sneezing. And remember always to read the instructions, like not to sneeze, and follow them by basically eating a bowl full of Advil like the Marines. So with that, Mr. Kevin, how is life over there in the swimmingly swamp that's known as Florida currently with all this rain, which I haven't seen? Well, I think a couple here and there showers. I was promised a lot of rain, man. I ain't got none yet. This is bogus. I would
You're
like
just
to
a little bit farther north than the jet stream is pushing it right now. And if you ask the folks in Sarasota, which is a little bit west and south of me, they haven't had a break.
Yeah.
I've gotten daytime breaks, and it's clouding up now, and thunderstorms in the afternoon, and drowning all night long to bright and sunny in the morning. And you will have your turn where you will be going, sunshine, please. But there's a downside to the water, as welcome as it is. And, of course, you know what that is?
What's that?
What happens when you take Florida and add water?
Oh, boy, you get a nice swampy.
Rain everywhere.
Yeah.
It's exploding. Everything's growing, which means it wants to reproduce, which I'm family friendly. So we will just say there's yellow dust in the air.
Yes.
Byproducts of plants having more plants.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't breathe.
Well, not only that, after the rain comes by, you could have yourself a nice small slice of good old Florida air.
You have the classic whiteout glasses. You're driving in your vehicle, your air conditioning's on, you're all happy and lucky, you go and open the door to step somewhere, and woof, you now have white fog lenses that I can't see anything.
Not saying it's. Oh, sorry. Is it not saying that it's...
You just have to take them off to even get out of the door and close the truck's door.
Yeah, well, it's not saying that Florida's hot and steamy. I mean, even my sweat has sweat. Man, you go to check the mail and you walk outside, your T-shirt's drenched. And we're still in the preheating stage. But you know what? This is not a Florida weathercast. This is a Jeepcast. And with that, again, I sincerely want to apologize for everything taking so long to get out, folks. It was affecting my mood. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't move my head down. And if you know anything about sleeping, some of us use a pillow, and that pushed my head down, which caused my elbow to go numb, and that was just a bad scene. So I'm also a belly sleeper with my right arm over my head or my left arm under my head, or wait, did that work? Moving on. I wasn't good at anatomy, but the point being is
Scott,
that
the human pretzel.
Yeah, pretty much. So I was pretty much no pillow lying on my back. And of course, for a big guy like me, the rafters were shaking and Autumn slept down the street because I snored like you would, like a truck, like a nitroglycerin truck downshifting on the highway of a bumpy road known as I-4. But with that, though, again, I do want to apologize. A lot of listeners reached out, George and, Ed and everyone else wanted to make sure I was okay. And Paul, hey, is everything okay? Yes, everything's fine. Kevin, took the reins and put that message out. I was a bit of a Grumposaurus Rex, again, because I didn't want to. Yeah, I did not want to take a bunch of medicines and things like that, and I had mitigated the muscle relaxers because they didn't really help. But again, I just want to thank everybody for their patience. Again, it's one of these things where at the end of the day, this is a Jeep hobby for us for the cast. So, like we talked about, we're balancing work, family, careers, helping friends. As Kevin has been just alluded to. Things grow on his property, so the man probably has turned over 200,000 miles on his mower already, and he's only had
the mower, the tractor, and I won't tell you how many times I've been to the fuel station for either diesel for one and gas for the other.
The man sharpens blades so much he bought his own sharpener. Okay,
I did. That's true.
And I'm not talking just a regular sharpener. The man has extra sets of blades on his mower, so that way there's no downtime. Because it's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. The minute you finish the one side, you got to start again on the other side. So, But on that note, if you also follow me on the regular, you also know I had an ill-fated adventure. Well, not I don't say ill-fated, but we alluded about other shows about sometimes is it time to sell a project vehicle and things like that. And for a brief moment, I put the LJ up for sale, and I'll be honest, and this is one thing that I will say, I put it up there knowing I was asking for 2 years ago pricing. But at the same time, we all know there's deals out there to be had. And if you do see an ad on the Jeep pages and someone starts to say, oh, you're asking too much money, blah, 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 just scroll past it. You don't need to make a comment. You're not going to, it's the internet, guys and gals. You're not going to educate people. How long have we been on the internet now? As one person put in a collector's community I just had, I said, at the end of the day, it's just plastic. At the end of the day, it's just a Jeep. And after, doing a little soul searching, while, yes, could I use the money? Sure, but I don't need it. And while it'd be nice to have, again, those few times I drove it, I'm like, you know what? Now's not the time. I'm just going to go ahead and pull it off the market. But a cool thing on that note, though, because Kevin will allude to here, if you are thinking about selling a vehicle, or even if you like keeping your vehicle clean, a little review coming up here soon. Kevin, a product he alluded to me. And also another product, Kevin's going to be like tech savvy here in a little bit, because the man has been doing some research and due diligence. I'll tell you that.
Oh, we haven't had a show, so I had to do something.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Shots fired.
Sorry.
But no, hey. That's justified. That's justified. I will absolutely own it until it's going to the Trail Dog's fault. So with that, no, I get it.
That's okay. You can tell them that Gunny now has a new playmate.
Yes, we have a new addition to the family. We have a small little kitten. He was the runt to the litter. His name is Sonny, to rhyme with Gunny. And my stepdad, of course, is making the jokes. Are you going to share? So anyways, Sonny and Share.
I was waiting for you to.
For those of you that don't get that reference, you can go ahead and Google that later. No, he's a cute little guy.
I got you, babe.
Yeah, that was well played, sir. That was worth the price of admission. But no,
and if you don't get it, you're too young.
Exactly. But he kept me company on the couch for a little bit. But no, again, so I'm throwing 1,000 things at you. Like, Kevin and I talk about firing the parts cannons. I'm throwing the show idea cannon. But again, the point being is that, if you're going to commit to selling something, it is the classic age old. It might be only a little over 7,000 produce. When you start researching and go, there were less LJ Rubicon 6-speeds built than there were scramblers, but it's only worth what people are willing to pay.
Yeah. So and you may find the right person to make you the offer for what you've invested in it and care and upgrades and I will be the first one to shout to anybody listening out there that Scott's upgrades aren't really upgrades. They're restorations. He didn't change anything with the exception of that noise box in the back. The biggest speaker box I have ever seen in a Jeep Wrangler TJ.
It is one series. Small 10. It's literally the size of 2 shoe boxes put together.
Yeah, with the box it's mounted in.
Oh, yeah, well, that's fair.
Half of the back of this area. Anyhow, yeah, Scott's... that's one of the advantages of being a parts guy is he knows all the connections. So, when we needed to do the the HVAC reinstall. We didn't go aftermarket. We didn't go nuts. He just went out to one of his friends in one of the salvage yards and got a really nice box, and we completely replaced it, rebuilt it, and just swapped out the entire HVAC system. And we did a show on that years ago.
Yeah.
And my back is still talking to me about spending a day twisted upside down trying to lay down in the floorboards of a TJ.
I will say this. If you're going to upgrade your seats, put those to the side. If you're going to replace your heater core and all that, put that to the side. Do it all the same day. So that way when you're crawling underneath the TJ or inside I have a pen in my hand. That's dangerous. Have the seats out. That way you can put the new seats in at the same time and save yourself, a neck injury.
Well, not only that, you'll have the old seats out and you can stretch out from front to back to kind of get underneath the dash. Although I don't recall us being under the dash. I recall us removing the dash.
Yeah. That was the fun
part. Dropping the steering column. But we did it in one day. So that means it's doable.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's, by the way, folks, that's not with a professional shop. That's out in front of my old house's garage in the driveway.
Yeah. And that was actually fun. I learned a lot that day. I really did. So how you been, Kevin?
Just peachy keen. Got through another birthday. It's really pretty bizarre to think about the age that I am hitting now. I'm now the same as a famous highway. You know what I'm thinking of?
Mentally I-4?
Get your kicks.
Oh, really?
Get your kicks on Route 66.
I would, dude. The thing is, we make jokes when he's over at Ron's shop hammering in axle sleeves. The man's built like Thor, but he has that. You wouldn't know it. I mean, he's like you see those old things of Santa Claus in his jacked up shop just hammering things away, and the belly's like a misnomer kind of thing. Kevin don't let his age fool you. The man can hang with the best of us youngins. Just ask Ron.
Oh, poor Ron. Yeah, we were at go-kart racing for his birthday a couple of days ago. I'd never done these electric go-karts indoors before. And I only got fourth on the first track I was on out of the team. But the next time, I don't even know where I came in. I think I didn't come in till seventh because we were in a different class. But I'm on that thing, and Ron was trying to brake to pass me, and he was like, yeah. He said, I was waiting for you to make a mistake. And he says, how in the heck do you make the thing turn 180 degrees? And I said, it's called brakes and sliding. He says, no, we're racing. I said, yep, but you're turning. So I had fun with that. And everybody's like, how old are you? The youngest person, I think, was 18, and the oldest was me at 66. And I ran a lot of the pack. I did not win. I don't claim that. There were others that were there who were much faster drivers than I was, and more power to them, and of both genders, I will be honest to tell you. But I had a hell of a lot of fun and drove Ron crazy.
Because if you've ever driven with Ron, he drives digitally.
Yes.
Go and stop.
And he was trying that. And my only complaint was those electric go-karts have a override. As soon as you touch the brake enough to make the brake lights come on, it kills your throttle regardless of where your foot is on the throttle pedal.
Oh.
So you can't double pedal. And I'm used to having my foot into the gas in both dirt track, which I did years ago in a car, and then tapping the brakes to lock the fronts so that you can then kick the rear end out and then keeping the power up. And so I had to really time that tap exactly right and then let the gas and slam it again, or I guess the rheostat, to bring the rear end around, because these were 180 pivots. This thing had a lot of finger point turns where you had to come in and dive for it, basically spin the car around, punch it back, and then immediately go the other way again. It was a lot of fun.
That sounds like
I was exhausted, though, at the end. I think most people were. So, yeah, but I don't, at this point, 66 is just a number. And it just means that I got experience on vehicles that most people think belong in a museum.
Yeah, I'll agree to that one.
I keep following a lot of information. I've had quite a few calls. I was at a car event about a month and a half ago here, a big car show out at I think it's the Bay Life Baptist Church in Brandon, Florida, and it's a very nice one. And we were walking around, and I'm sitting there talking with some guys, and the guy was an electrical guru, but he had a Chevy Vega with a small block Chevy conversion in it, which I remember when that was something new.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, yeah, well, the electrical this, the electrical that. And I said, well, what's your problem? And next thing you know, I'm going, well, try this. And he walked over there and went, tick, 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 and the thing fired off. And he goes, oh, my God, how do you know this? Because I grew up on that thing, I've worked on those when they were new,
Right.
when they were still arguments. And same thing for early Mustangs, Gen 1s, 64.5, 65s, 66s, 67s, the whole nine. And I was just walking around, plus all the classic C10 trucks were there,
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It was a whole lot of fun. But, on the other hand, I still have my electronics, and I can still plug into an OBD2 and scan it and analyze it. So 'tis what it is.
Yeah. Well,
It is what it is.
in a way, you're almost like an automotive renaissance man in that way.
I don't know about that. I just don't give up. That's what most people don't give up.
Yeah.
If you haven't solved the problem, learn some more. You'll probably get to the end. And that's where I take it right now. That's become my challenge, is when somebody comes into the last one. The last one was somebody with a Jeep JK. Yeah, it was a JK.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't charging. And it already had an alternator put into it. It already had, this and that and the other kind of things. And they checked the computers, and, everybody was just kind of shrugging their shoulders. And I forget how many shops that they had been into. And I was like, okay, let's do a quick diagnosis here. Plugged into it with the Autel. And sure enough, it was calling for charge, on the computer. So I went to the back of the computer, opened it up, and put a pin on it. And now, granted, I don't have an oscilloscope yet. Next tool to be bought.
Mm-hmm.
But you can guesstimate, if you're talking about a 12-volt signal and it's on a 50% duty cycle, which is how the alternator is controlled by switching the power on and off, then it would read approximately 6 volts. Okay, so you can read kind of intuitively. If it's a 5-volt signal, it might only be 2.5 volts. So it takes a very fast and good, and you're setting your voltometer on what they call RMS, which is the averaging function. And I'm reading back there, and I'm seeing, about 8 volts coming out of the computer.
Right.
And I go up to the little 2-pin plug on the back of the alternator and read it there. And I said, you ain't got nothing at this end, bud. And he goes, well, but you just said the computer. And I said, yep. And if it's in at that end of the wire and not at that end of the wire, what's that tell you?
You got a break.
You got a broken wire. And I said, good luck on that.
Congratulations. I diagnosed you. You're replacing the wire. Bye-bye.
Well, and that's what I told him. I said, look, here's the challenge. You can split the harness. I said, it depends on how detailed. Me, I'd split the harness, and I'd dig up, and I'd find where, because if it's damaged and broken somewhere else, there's a damaged piece, and next to it that just hasn't failed yet. But at this point, I was not in a position to stay and help, and he was happy to, he's a very handy person. He said, no, he says, I get it now. He says, so you're telling me, I said, well, this is the quick and dirty. Yes. Computer's calling for it. I see an output on the pin that it's supposed to be there. That's the same color wire, same gauge. And somehow it gets from, that position across the holder on the JK's there on the driver's side, standing up by the battery. And it's getting over here on the passenger side in the middle of the block on the alternator.
Right.
And so you got a busted wire. Now, the other thing we can do is a quick and dirty. I said, you can take a piece of wire and a couple of needles, and you can stick a needle behind this one, just like you saw me back probe on the computer, and a back probe on the alternator pin, and connect them with a light gauge jumper wire and see if you suddenly have charge meter. Long story short, a couple of days later, he texted me and he said, I did the needle and wire thing, and he said, it charged. He says, I'm hunting the wire.
Nice. I'm hunting a wire.
I'm hunting a wire. So, yeah, you can do things. I want to get, for those that ask about the oscilloscope, an oscilloscope will actually read voltage over time and display it on a chart, on a screen. So on the JKs and later use a variable duty cycle to control the output of the alternator, which just simply means the field coil wires on or off. And if you turn it on and off, let's say 60 times a second, you will get, or 50 times a second, you will get a light charge at half voltage. You won't get the 14 volts out. You'll get 7 or something. It's not exactly that, but that's how it's set up. You just have a little gremlin, a little, what do you call it? The angry pixie on the control switch going on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And that's how you adjust the apparent voltage and therefore your apparent charging rate. And it works pretty well. A lot of things today, when you have dimmers on LEDs, that is how you dim an LED. An LED is either on or off. And you dim it by flickering how fast you can turn it on and off so that to the human eye, it appears medium bright.
Yeah.
That's why when you turn an LED down, it goes to a point where it goes, you. And that means it's not that it's not flickering current through there, but you're flickering it faster than the reaction can occur to release photons.
That's
or
fair.
Slower than it.
Yeah.
So, anywho, off onto that topic. So, anyway, what are we getting into now? Anything else for you?
Well, again, one of the things I wanted to chat real quickly is, but you brought up LEDs and you fired a photon in a mild noggin. There was on the Jeep Gladiator page today, someone made a comment, 6,000 miles on their new Gladiator LED bulb, LED headlamp, and they went to the dealership, and it's been like this for 6 months, and the guy's basically, the math is all funky. And again, please understand, I'm getting this from a Facebook post, so I don't know all of the here ands or thens. But the
stories and facts may vary according to your perception.
And it may have already changed because I already talked enough about it. But I had one person basically, they were frustrated. They're told me that light bulbs aren't covered, and I'm going to have to do this. And I'm like, no, that's covered. An LED lamp is not a serviceable bulb. If you have an incandescent bulb, no, that's not serviced. The first 12,000 miles usually is. But if the LED headlamp is sold as a headlamp unit and is not serviceable,
as a fixed unit, as opposed to the earlier ones that had the replaceable H1s and those kinds of things.
This is a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty. And I said, at Toyota, blah, 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 we do it. And the guy's looking out for his buddy or whomever, I don't care, but he goes, well, that's Toyota. We're talking about Jeep. And I'm like, okay, Bucky, been doing this 30 years. And I can tell you right now, I have also sold Chrysler and other parts. But yes, you can. That the problem is someone's looking at that and assuming it's a bulb, and not doing the due diligence. You need to ask for the service manager and say, "Hey, this is an LED," and I spelled it out.
A sealed headlight unit is the way it needs to be described.
And it's not serviceable. That's the biggest thing. No serviceable bulb. Well, then the guy fired back off to me again, being snarky. Well, that's Toyota. This is Chrysler. What makes you qualified? I have never in my life fed a troll, Kevin. So I expounded on my entire automotive history of where I worked up to the point of where I worked. And I keep that stuff close to the chest. And then because he slapped the mongoose, I was mad. I said, so after my boss and wife passed, I relocated to Toyota. And that's how I have my Toyota experience. And then in politeness, I said, again, go talk to the service writer. And again, I expounded everything else. And I said, so I have a question for you now, sir. Is that comprehensive enough information for you? I haven't heard anything back yet.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
But the point I was trying to get at is that, one, don't feed the trolls, people. Don't.
Yeah, Scott will pay for that one later.
I'm going to pay for that one for sure. But the whole point, though, is that, yes, LED bulbs, you got to kind of know your product. Kevin and I talk about education. Like, and I don't know if this was during our pre-conversation or what you just said just now, because we talk for a while before we record, guys. And you made a comment, educate yourself because you might have haven't found your answer yet because you haven't learned it. You have a better way. You understand what
you put it in a nice. You put it in a longer format.
A clunky way.
Basically, was telling folks, if you haven't solved your problem, don't give up. Go educate yourself, because you'll probably find the solution. Because every time you go out and look, you learn a little more on the problem side, so you know better how to read the answers for the solution side.
Yes.
There's never a failure. There's just a lack of education.
Mm-hmm. Or an opportunity to learn. And this brings back to everything else and to an age-old thing. And now I've opened Pandora's box, and I apologize. We're going to have to shelve the other things we have for a quick second, because welcome to Scott's soapbox moment.
Uh-oh.
While we were talking on the whole, and I'll be honest with you guys, I'm collecting G.I. Joe classified toys. That's why if you're on my Facebook page, I am a sucker for that stuff. It was my childhood, blah, blah, blah. One guy was making a comment about snarky comments. Again, the internet, the whole 9 yards, and I'll shelve that for right now. But the point I'm trying to make is that while all this is going on, you learn these things. You learn about this. And one of the comments that people ask and have said to me in person is, how have you learned all the stuff you've learned? And I tell them this, is I learned by watching and listening to Kevin. When I'm at work and I go on to my little diatribe again with stuff Kevin taught me, they're like, "Oh, I never thought think of it this way." Like, "Well, how'd you learn?" Well, again, I learned because I listened, and I also learned because I wanted that knowledge. Now, here's where I'm going to tighten this up in a little bow, so bear with me. This is a bit of a rabbit hole. When I see new Jeepers go on Facebook groups, my heart bleeds for you guys and gals. A friend of mine from middle school just bought a Jeep. And, of course, shameless plug, you know where to find a good Jeep podcast. But the other point is that, and I did warn her, people are going to say, why'd you buy this, blah, 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 in the whole 9 yards. And, again, she's thick-skinned. She was in the Navy. She works on ships. She could tear down a Cat diesel power plant and put it back together. She's not scared. While there are people on the internet that chase and are rude and snarky, whether it be ducks or plasti dip or stickers or anything else, we have to welcome the new group. But there's a caveat, and Kevin and I talk about this many times, is the do it for me and the do it and teach me how to do it. Mm-hmm. While off-road in itself, whether it be recovery or self recovery, you have to learn some things. And while it's good to ask questions, take the initiative, like Kevin said, to educate yourself on some things. And where I'm going with this is when the LJ died, what did I do? I remembered that, okay, I'm not having communication with my programmer, so that tells me the computer has now died. So I go and logically think, and a couple little Google searches, and one phone call to Mark Cantrell at Wrangler Fix, let's be honest. I knew where my problem was. Yeah, I knew where my problem was. 15 minutes, I'm back on the road, okay? Mm-hmm. And where this is getting important is that when we talk, when people ask me a question about how to do this, I try and put in that tidbits and thirst of knowledge, because while, like the guy with learning the charging thing, he's going to understand the thought process of how to solve a problem. So if we can teach the next group of Jeepers that, okay, that's cool, you got ducks and all this, but hey, when you're asking a question of, hey, where do I find the best prices on a bumper, or how do I install this, or what best shop installs a lift, by all means, give money to those shops. Learn to do that. But if you really want to get to know, surround yourself with good people that will teach you, because later on down the road, if you got death weld, you got a clunk, you got a noise, you got a squeak, you've installed the lift, and therefore you now have the knowledge to service and work on your own vehicle. Now, it's not for everybody. There's certain things I won't do, I won't touch. It goes on the record after that point, But the point I'm getting at is that you might be in a situation where you might have to self-rescue, or at least try first, because like Kevin said, you might get lucky. You might fix your problem. You
might find that annoying tick was just your friend slid underneath and tied a long zip tie onto your drive shaft.
Yeah, or a zip tied harmonica to your frame rail. Yeah. The Parts Professional page I'm on just actually said that actually happens. There was one in the wild in Orlando. I will tell you this right now. There is a GM shop that had a harmonica taped to a Silverado, or zip tied to a Silverado frame, and it was in the wild. Anyways, but so that's what I'm talking about. Is like, again, Kevin talked about find that knowledge and all that. Again, I know I'm going on a little bit of diatribe, and I'm sorry, but just be kind to the new guys and gals when they're coming up. Teach them. but have that respect to knowing we're there, and maybe one day you might have the knowledge to get yourself out of a situation. And that's it for Scott's Soapbox Moment. I'm sorry for taking up 9 minutes of your time, but I felt it's important to listen to.
Well, and I'll just chime in to say I got what I know by listening to people, asking questions, and making mistakes. I dove into it, asked the questions, and walked over there, grabbed a wrench. And I've broken my fair share of bolts and knuckles, and said my own fair share of unpleasant words. You've heard Scott beep a few out on this show. And I do my best to try and pass along experiences that maybe will make you guys a better Jeeper. Because I will say the one thing about doing your own work, and I get it that not everybody can or will or has the time to, but when you do, you're much better Jeeper in the long run because you know instinctively exactly how your suspension moves, how your steering system works, how your brake system works, because you put it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So be that as it may, it's not for everybody. I'm the first one to say that. It's not for everybody. That's why you really do need to, if you're not going to do it yourself, you need to do your research and talk to a shop. Go in. And if they kind of blow you off and say, oh, it's no problem, just bring it in, we'll take care of it, you don't have to worry about a thing. I worry about those people.
Yeah.
Because many times they're overconfident. Talk to your friends. We're blessed right now with one of the largest Jeep communities that this nation world has ever seen. Numbers are huge. I guarantee you that pretty much, I won't say every person, but I'd say probably 75% of you are within distance of some Jeep community or group where you can reach out. And 100% of you that at least have access to the internet, and if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume you're one of those people,
mm-hmm.
You can reach out electronically. And, people are often, I get this, yeah, but how do you know what's right? And I said, you have to read them. And if somebody tells you this is the absolute answer and toilet paper will fix your gas tank leak, no problem, you might want to go somewhere else, and Scott's giving me the weirdest
No,
looks.
I for all this time, I'm sorry. No, toilet paper will not fix your gas tank. Everyone knows it's chewing gum.
Yes. So, there's great information. There's also misinformation. I generally go with, I read them all, and you will pick up a thread over which ones are common. And then I start reading technical journals and manuals on the most common responses, and you'll be surprised what you find out. There are great websites out there that really do teach a logical, professional problem determination, even in a tongue-in-cheek manner. And I've mentioned those podcasts before, or those Facebook pages, or those video YouTubers.
Mm-hmm. Judo chop. Sorry.
And there are some of those that I still follow to this day because their innate knowledge of problem solving, not individual models, not individual issues, but the problem solving is just fantastic. Some are in New York, some are right here in Florida, in Sarasota, not too far from us. Some are in Illinois. And these guys, most of these people are running a business and are supplementing the business income with YouTube. And they are not working on their vehicles or their friends' vehicles. They are working on customer vehicles. That puts a whole different ball game into the information they're showing you. They're showing you real life events. And whether it be chasing down wiring to replacing subframes, it's a great thing to watch. And if you want to learn. Mm-hmm. And I'll get off that little subject there, but as we said earlier, I'm 66 years old and I'm still learning, and I will keep learning until they close the lid, and then I'll be banging on and going, "Hey, I don't got signal in here.
I can't get my YouTube."
Anyway,
no, we talked about this. I'm supposed to put the tape recorder in there that says, "Hey, can someone open the door? It's hot down here."
there's a lot of jokes about that, but and I'm not going to go into what happens if you let an engineer loose in hell.
Meanwhile, air conditioning. No,
Ultimate source of power. I can get all the air conditioning I want.
Exactly. Heat exchanger. I'll show you what that means.
And drag him back to heaven. What are you going to do? Sue the devil? Where are you going to get a lawyer?
Yo. So anyway.
So anywho,
no, but real quickly, as Kevin talked about making those mistakes, when I do the car stereo installation, like, yeah, I mean, you're pretty good at that. How'd you learn to do that, buddy? I have killed more amplifiers and head units and speakers than I have that are actually functional. Okay, yes. So there's a learning curve there, and then again, and luckily, Sound on Wheels, which is no longer in business, folks, but they used to have you pay an extra $25, you get the you break it, we take care of it warranty, and let me tell you something, Scott took advantage of that warranty, especially with a lot of NTX products, but because again, I let out the magic smoke. No, still won't work. Damn it! All right, gotta go Sound on Wheels. Hey, Mike, what? I did it again, man. Will you learn, Scott? It's red, black, not red, black. You're not making a checkerboard. You're installing an amplifier. So that's why I learned about the signal volt wire to an amplifier. By the way, kids, is just 0.5 volts, and doesn't really like when you just jam 12 volts through that sucker.
And just to remind you that most of the times, if your engine's running and the charging's going, it's upwards of 14.
There goes the smoke again. But no, I learned a lot of important lessons, again, like Kevin said, but you can't be afraid to. But again, at the same time, though, know your limitations. Like I said, when it goes on a rollback, like I will change my own oil. I'll put an alternator in. If it's the LJ, I will absolutely put a water pump in. If it's the Gladiator, I paid for that warranty. You're doing it.
I just have to laugh, and this will come up in a minute. But did you just take a look at what the on the bottle is? What is that?
That's funny. That is an LJ or JL. That's
either JL
funny.
or a Gladiator fender.
Yeah, no, you can tell it's the JL because it's running. Moving on.
Well, on to a little bit of a learning moment anyway, folks.
Yes.
I want to share with you a quickie, a sidebar that's non-electrical and non-mechanical, and it's really outside my wheelhouse because it has to do with appearance. This is normally Scott's bailiwick, not mine. He's the polisher, the what do you call it? With the when you wash it and you clay bar it.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never done clay barring.
Full disclosure, when's the last time you washed the TJ?
Well, this time it was only probably 2 months, 3 months ago.
Okay, don't feel so bad then.
It because I was doing this. Before that, it was 2 years.
The last time the Gladiator and the LJs had a bath was before I went on a cruise in February to ask Autumn to marry me.
Oh, yes, and she actually said yes, despite that, right?
I think the check cleared. But the point is so when you said, I'm the one that keeps the vehicles clean and all that, you do not want to look at that Gladiator right now. Right now. That's why I'm hoping for rain.
Oh, it doesn't take rain to get the TJ clean most of the time. It takes a pressure washer and either the yellow or the red nozzle. And then I hope I don't peel too much paint.
So speaking of washing and waxing.
Speaking of washing and waxing, yes. I got asked by a friend of mine about, keeping black plastic black. That's kind of a challenge, particularly here in Florida. I never had this much problem when I lived up in the Northeast or any of the other central U.S. areas. But you get here in Florida, the UV just goes plastic. Oh, and it's black.
Yeah.
That's yep.
Sprinkle a little pollen on it and I'll eat it. Sorry.
Yeah, and it turns around and looks like a white bone. And I have tried everything. Add to the fact that, the TJ has seen a few rocks and trees. I've leaned up against a mud bank one time, very nicely deforming the fenders, which even with a heat gun haven't come completely back square. And for those that don't know, Slightly Altered has expanded wheel flares, not removed wheel flares and fenders. I build a counter build just to show that you can be a Jeeper when you're running 180 degrees from the common, 44s, no fenders, and yeehaw moments with 1-ton axles. And I'm running a 6-cylinder with stock width axles with 33-inch tires with extended flares on factory fenders and that kind of stuff. And I keep up just fine. But What hasn't fared really well has been the black plastic here in Florida. Um, First off, when I lay up against a tree because I'm side hilling somewhere and then come off of it, I get white rings of stress. If you've ever taken a piece of plastic and stressed it, you know how it gets all white and discolored. And while you can heat them from underneath and they boink back into shape, you have tree rings impressed into your plastic. And Scott has seen slightly altered. It's becoming a style now to have all that deformation and color. And I have tried everything, and I can use. I tried peanut oil. Somebody recommended. I've tried Back to Black. I've tried Mother's Polish. I've tried this. I've tried that. What's the matter?
I'm the one that said the peanut oil because I was a big fan of it.
Well, no, and I mean,
Till a squirrel ate my Jeep.
Short term.
Yes.
Okay, but one or two Florida rainstorms or a good trip into the Georgia mud, if I'm going up, central, or something, and it's gone, and it's just history. And so I was trying. They were like, "Oh, what works?" And at that time I was like, "I have no idea." And so I was actually at a shop, and one of the local dealers had this product. And I looked at it and I said, "That looks like the turtle wax turtle, but I don't see turtle wax." He says, "Well," he says, "it is. It's from them, but," he said, "this is supposed to be the latest." And I was like, "Okay." So, and I picked up the bottle and I just showed it to Scott for close up on the screen, and it has a JK front fender, with the little nose cap of black plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. Now, this is not branded turtle wax other than it has the green turtle logo up top, but it's called Hybrid Solutions. And I don't know if that's another product line they've come out with. And it is titled Graphene Acrylic Trim Restorer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those that don't know, graphene is graphite, but it's one atom layer thick. All right. And it's kind of this miracle thing that graphene has all of these superpowers, or super chemical characteristics in both structures and products, that it makes it very strong, very hard, this, that, you name it. Okay, it's super goo.
Super goo.
And,
that's funny.
Well, what?
No, you're right. You're right.
In all kinds of things. I said, well, I'll try it. What the heck? I'll try it. It was not cheap. I mean, it was probably $15, $16 a bottle for this stuff. But I went back and I did something that nobody does. I read the back of the bottle. And I was like, okay, this looks good. They do want you to remove any waxes or things like that, that you may have used before as best you can. And I did. So I cleaned it and I wiped it down with a wax and grease remover. And, I cleaned them up, which of course made I should have taken a before picture. That was my mistake.
Yeah.
The tree rings. And I had some rather brilliant. It looked like artwork on the flares. I almost wanted to just clear coat them and leave them that way, but it's like, no, we're gonna test this. And so it says, "Put on gloves." ... Period. You will. Like, okay. So I put on gloves, wore old clothes, and started applying this stuff. And it comes out of the bottle, and it is like pouring liquid night. There's just it's I almost thought it was sucking my soul. It was so deep and dark. And I started working that stuff in, and it went in very quickly, and it kind of just disappeared. And I was like, boy, it's either a hot solvent or something. I don't know. And I went ahead and did all my trim work. And then I was like, oh boy, I hope I can get this off the body paint, because that's gloss black and this isn't. And it did. It came off the paint because the paint had been waxed sometime in the last, I don't know, 20 years.
Nice.
And I went ahead and did one fender, and I stepped back, and I'll be honest with you, I was floored. And I ended up doing the rest of them, and I did the mirror backs, on the TJs are black plastic. And I kind of started going around and testing it on different materials. This stuff, and it did take a second coat in some areas. It's not that it showed through, but that it left a tonal difference. between the satin color, just kind of a ghosty grayish kind
Gotcha.
of so I did a second, not tone is in audio like what's on your head right now, Scott, but tonal is in color from the color charts.
Gotcha.
And it blackened them up. Now, a lot of the other trim restorers that I've used have got blackened them up. And usually within a month to 6 weeks and 2 car washes, they're gone. I haven't touched this stuff now in 4 months. And I've been through 2 car washes, car shows, not to show, but to go to. I've driven it here in Florida. We're getting the first rain right now in months.
Yeah.
And there's no residue coming off of them. There's no color showing through. None of the distortions are showing through. Even right now, this stuff has lasted longer than any other product I have put on that poor beat up TJ. So, folks, if you want to try it, it's your own risk. I know that I did my prep work. That's important that you clean it with a wax and grease remover because otherwise this stuff won't, get a bite into the plastic. And I think the acrylic is the key more than the graphene. Graphene is what gives it the black color, but the acrylic is the binder that makes it bite. I'm impressed with this stuff. I sent Scott a couple of pictures of it, and I don't know that the flares look that good. Maybe I'll put them on our website, Scott, or on our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Just these simple pictures. There's one with the back of the Jeep under the gas cap where gasoline usually drips down.
Yep.
And it's no marks. And then the front fender that normally has the big tree rings in it.
Mm-hmm.
And is it absolutely perfect? No, it's not a paint job. It's a fender flare cover up. But it's some neat stuff. And I'd be kind of curious to hear from any of you out there if you have tried this product. Like I say, it does have the turtle up at the top, but it doesn't say turtle wax. It just got a picture of and it says Hybrid Solutions, Graphene Acrylic Trim Restorer. Kind of a neat product. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Scott was talking to me about it, that he may give it a shot on the Gladiator where some of the cowling has gone ghost white.
Oh, it's gone
Florida sun.
Ghost white. And Kevin and I made a comment because December 2022, I got a snorkel for the Gladiator, and we talked about on the show. I got a cheap Amazon one, and everyone in the Gladiator forums, because it went on sale for like $200 or $250 or something, some crazy stupid price. And everyone's like, well, it's going to turn white just as, and I'm like, well, good, it'll match the cowl. I'm happy to report that was a year and a half ago. And guess what? It's the snorkel is still ABS black plastic. My cowl, on the other hand, saw his Casper the friendly cowling. Yeah, it's a ghost. Yeah, it's like Scooby and Shaggy. I'm going to call my cowl Scooby. But it's funny because I was again thinking about a product and everything else, which is kind of funny because this might actually segue into the next little thing, Kevin. Go like a little tech segment, if that's okay with Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about different ways. Again, trying to save some money. Maybe get a battery tender for the LJ or whatnot. We unfortunately Butch the GPW. Something's wrong with it. It broke, but we're working on that to see what happened with that. But I keep it on a battery tender and things like that. But again, it's funny. Like Kevin and I we talk back and forth once a week sometimes. But we don't really talk, and it's amazing how sometimes we both share a brain and don't even know it. Because I was thinking about actually upgrading the battery tender because, again, Kevin will go into all the technical details, but I know sometimes leaving it on a battery tender, especially, let's be honest, we all know I'm cheap. The good news is, though, is that I didn't wait a year to install it. In my defense. True. Oh, speaking of which, with my for sale post with the LJ, I put, the lift's only been installed 5,000 miles ago, and one of our listeners said, "Yeah, but it's 4 years old because he's had it in the garage for 2 years." I'm like, jerk. So I'm like, thanks a lot, guys.
That listener.
Yeah, whatever. You're on my Christmas card list now. But the point is that that was a funny little rib. But same thing with the seats. Moving on. So, I knew I was kind of like on that edge because I already killed one battery in the GPW. Of course, it was a year old, and again, this thing sits 90% of the time. So Kevin and I shared the same brain because I wasn't even thinking. I was thinking about it, but I hadn't talked to him about it it yet. It's on my list to talk to Kevin about. I think I've teased this enough, Kevin. So why don't you help bail me out here? I'm floundering in the water.
Anyhow, what Scott's going on about is we start talking. As I've mentioned before on the show, that I have had a phantom current drain in slightly altered for a while now, and I'm pretty sure it's the radio. I isolated it to the radio circuit, but life has interceded for the last, 6 to 8 months, and I have not had a chance to clean out enough of that corner of the garage and get to work and dig in. I am trying to pick a new radio and see which model has the features. I want to, again, sticking with the simpler side of the builds, I'm trying to find something in a single DIN package that I don't have to rip up and rebuild the dash, because most of us out there, most of you listening, aren't interested in the modifications of stuff that's to that level of, shall we say, reconstructing a TJ center section of the dash. Now, yes, I know there are kits out there, folks, and there's different products, but I'm just trying to stick with what the majority of us can do. Most of us are happier just pulling the cover plate off, setting it aside, changing the radio, and then hoping that the cover plate goes and actually fits again when you put it back on. But in the meantime, I've had the dead battery syndrome, or I shouldn't say dead. It just has been click, 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 or, it would catch and it would charge itself up. And so I went and I checked the battery health, and the battery was okay. It just was down. And if that happens too many times, that in itself will damage the batteries.
Yeah.
And I do have a charger, and I did have a nice trickle charger, and I used both. And then the trickle charger kind of gave up, and I was kind of ticked off. It was only about 24 years old. I don't understand why it died.
And y'all called me cheap. In Kevin's defense,
I bought a good one.
Stuff was made different back 24 years ago.
Yeah, it was better plastic. No. Anyway, so I started looking, and when I started looking and doing comparisons on replacing that trickle charger, I kind of was like, I caught a thread, and this happens many times when I'm reading, and it led me to a website that was something sponsored by battery manufacturers, both of them in the U.S. Even though there's a lot of brands, there's only, I think, 2 factories.
There's only 2
manufacturers. And it was a discussion, kind of a paper of, so to speak, on charging batteries and maintenance charging too. And it's not just at us in the automotive world. I mean, you've got the biggest areas is looking at fork trucks, electric fork trucks, and backup battery systems for, building uninterruptible power supplies and all stuff. And they were talking about the different levels of charging. And most of this would be boring as you know what to you guys, but I am a geek and an engineer to boot, so that I tend to dig into that stuff. And you learn about bulk charging, and then equalization charging, and then float charging, and then resting, which is the 4th mode, which most every other article ignored. And I was like, So I read deeper, more deeper than I'm going to go into this podcast for. But one of the things I came to the understanding of is that there are chargers that can produce, well, some of them will go nuclear and dump just 100 amps into a battery. In fact, your alternator is capable of, like mine is capable of 140 or 160, somewhere along those lines, amps of power. So, you can really slam some amperage into the battery. Some watts, actually, is what you're working with, is power here, power over voltage. But anyhow, then you'll have trickle chargers. They produce the same voltages, but they're power limited. Okay, that's the difference. So you have a charger, which really is no limit on the top. It could probably blow the battery to smithereens if you bought a big enough one. But I can remember the old emergency boxes that most dealerships and garages had that came out on casters, looked like a small fork truck with a box built into it. And you'd plug that thing into an outlet and turn it on, and you'd go, and and you could literally hear the battery sizzling.
Yeah.
But you could start your car, you know. Then you have these trickle chargers. Some may even go above 2, but let's just, for the sake of this discussion, say they're maximum 2 amps. And they're supposedly regulated in terms of feedback current from the battery to not damage the battery. And the report was basically saying 99% of that's hooey, because they don't have a rest phase. And then you have a battery maintainer, and they're different. And they usually are 1 to 2. Some are up to 2 amps, but they have a microcircuit controller in them, and they understand the rest phase. And they are not there for primary charging. And I'll get to this in a minute as far as my experience with them, but that they will charge, you know, at 2 amps, drop to 1, drop to fractional amperage, and then they will turn themselves off. They will not apply any power to the battery, but they will monitor the battery. And if it drops below a certain set point, okay, and that varies depending on which one, usually it drops below 12.5 volts, then it will kick back on and it'll redo that cycle. And so it's there as a maintains the battery, but does not continually feed the battery. I think you wanted to comment or question.
Just the words blended together there. You meant a rest phase, not a rest phase, like being you're under arrest? Because I remember when we talked.
No, yeah, a
Gotcha. A comma rest phase.
Leave
Gotcha.
the battery alone, except to monitor it. You know, and yes, monitoring itself will pull, but that's in micro amps, 0.000 whatever, to see if it's out there monitoring the voltage. But because it's plugged in, and so then I said, interesting. I wonder if that's what killed my old battery, because I used to keep it on the regular trickle charger thinking I was doing a good thing. And apparently I wasn't, because if I had unplugged it for a week and then plug it back in and then unplug it for a week and plug it back. No, I'm lazy. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
There are issues in life that take me away from my Jeep for weeks at a time. And so I started researching and got myself some qualifications. The most important was to look for a maintainer that specifically said it was a maintainer and that had a resting or no power phase in its, literature. And sure enough, I found a series of them, and they're out there. Battery Tender used to be that way, but I don't see it in their current product line at all. It's now just a trickle charger. But interestingly enough, now this one does come from China, but from a pretty good name brand, and Noco, N-O-C-O. And this is the one I chose, a Noco Genus 1. It's a very small unit. It looks like a phone charger brick. Plug it in the outlet. It's got a light on it and a little press pad that you can adjust it from lead acid to lithium to, AGM and those things. And it has modes, and what it has is a charge mode. And the charge mode can go up to 2 amps. Basically, when you read the documentation, it doesn't do it very often. Probably did it the first time I plugged it into mine because it was down. But then it goes to a low trickle, and then it goes into a rest mode. And you can tell there's a little LED pad in the middle of this thing. It's about a 3/8 of an inch square little screen, for lack of it. It's not really a screen. It's just a glow port. And if it's orange and it's on hard, it's doing full 2 amps. If it's down in the low trickle under an amp, it slowly pulses. You actually see this orange just having this wom, wom. And then when it goes green, if it's green, it's in rest mode. It's not charging. And I was wondering, I said, okay, so how many days till I see red again? And sure enough, about 5 days later, I was walking past, because you get used to these things. You don't even look. And I looked over there and I saw wong, wong in red. And then probably about 2 hours later, it was back to green. Why is my co-host smirking?
bring down the rock slide step, pal. I'm sorry, Kevin. I can't do that.
You turned me off.
We see this growing red light.
Well, I did have them off thinking they were the problem.
Oh,
but
no.
That didn't fix it. So that's why I'm back to the radio.
Okay.
The neat thing about this unit is, like I said, it's a small plug into the wall. If you're going somewhere and you want to take it with you because you're going to be parking somewhere that you're going to, I don't know, leaving the Jeep at a friend's house for a month or two, you can do that. And again, you really shouldn't need one. You should get up to 3 to 4 months before you need to recharge a battery on a parked vehicle. But if you're like me and you have gotten a few too many additives that have decided to belly up, or you bought a cheap radio that doesn't know to turn itself off when I turn it off, which is really what happens. A lot of these radios that are instant on, okay? In other words, if you turn the key on and the radio comes on with full memory still there, it's been drawing power the whole time.
Yeah.
And most of them are supposed to go into a sleep state, but as they age, something happens electronically, corrosion, whatever, they don't go to sleep. They're not blasting, they're not playing music, but the logic hasn't gone to sleep and they're drawing power. And the cheaper the radio, and mine was $130,
Yeah.
the quicker, the more they pull power. Because most radios take 2 power leads, a keyed switch power, which is off, and a bat feed so that it doesn't lose its memory. And the other option would be to take the bat feed off and hook it to the key, but then you'd have to reset the radio every time you started the Jeep. So right now I'm searching for the right radio, but in the meantime, to save the $800 battery or whatever it is, I don't think it was that much, but it was expensive.
Yeah.
I decided to go with a maintainer. So the key here that I'm trying to get to you guys is to know that there are 3 kinds of battery supplement devices: a charger, a trickle charger, which is a low amperage limited charger, and a maintainer that is also a kind of a charger, but it's smart enough to turn itself off and still monitor the battery in such a way that it tells you what's going on. And I also found about these from the motorcycle, because they have the world's smallest batteries in a lot of these bikes, and they almost need maintainers just by default when they park them for months at a time. And I got a good friend of mine who's driving all over the U.S., and they use different ones, and it's very popular with them. Like I said, it's worth checking out if you need one of these. If you do park your Jeep for a long time and don't pull the battery off, that's the other quick and dirty, is to put a battery disconnect and, park your Jeep, open the hood, and pull the little switch or disconnect the negative terminal. Of course, you'll have to reset everything when you restart the Jeep the next time. This is very easy. It comes with, you can order, and I did order the little ring terminal kit that was, $7, and I put it onto the feeds, and it tucks in next to the fuse box with a weather cap on it. When I close the hood, doesn't rattle, doesn't move. I drive the Jeep all day long. I get home. If I know I'm not going to be using it anytime soon, pop open the hood. I have a little wood block I set where the latch latches so that it doesn't lock down and cut the wire. Plug it in, stab it in the wall, walk away. And inevitably, I'll plug it in, and I have yet, despite driving the Jeep for 2 hours to get home, that it doesn't go on red. It comes on red, and it says, nope, I'm going to polish this thing up absolutely spot on perfect. And then it gets happy and goes green.
Exactly.
So, again, not trying to sell the Noco Genus 1 charger. You may have something you prefer as well, but just know that there is that third state of maintenance, which is rest. Mm-hmm. When it's done with its charging, and when it's done with its trickle charging, and it's up to the correct internal resistance of the battery, because that's really what it's monitoring, it should shut down. It should not put any amperage in. It can draw minor amps to monitor, but that's all it should do, and it's kind of nice. And so far, now granted, this test has only been a couple of weeks long at the time of this recording, but it seems to be a great product. It really does. So, if you've got a Jeep, or if you've got a collection of them, like somebody I know here, you may be interested in something like this.
And as always, this is something you went out and purchased on your own. They're not a sponsor of the show. This is nope. As honest as a review as we can give, because again, this is something like, again, Kevin and I do as a hobby. You know, again, it's kind of fun to watch, but it's interesting because some of these manufacturers we've talked to all of a sudden are kind of like, you know, hey, that's kind of a really, talk to me, Kevin, because that's how we fostered some relationships with some people because they want to pick his brain now. Like a failure in the field kind of thing. But again, I think, by the way, it was show 209. I know I forgot to say that at the beginning, but.
I said it, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay,
you told me,
good.
and I said, hey, welcome to show 209 but anyway, that's okay.
But no, I think we pretty much had a really good topics of discussions. But again, as always, guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, show ideas, please email us, send us a message through Facebook. I know it works because, again, excuse me, everyone's saying, hey, Scott, you okay? Sure. As I'm trying not to chew someone's face off. But no, again, we really appreciate all the feedback, both positive and negative. You know, again, no such thing as negative feedback. You know, if something's not working or you guys don't like something, hey, let us know. We appreciate everything. We appreciate every one of your downloads. Again, please like and share the show. We definitely could use some upticks and some listeners. That would be nice. But with that, Kevin, I think it's almost time we lock some hubs and put the Jeep in 4 low. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, let me go turn off my charger and unplug the Jeep.
Exactly. So with that, folks, as always, we want you to do nothing but take your pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave the trail.
Please, let's keep them clean and keep them. Oh, I do have one quick shout out in that room.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
What's coming up, Scott? Very, very soon. You passed it on your page.
That's right. The Florida Trail Team Challenge.
Yes, it is. It's coming up here down in Florida, and it is not for Floridians only.
Yes.
It's for anybody. If you're willing to come down here to, it's north central Florida. It's in.
Well, the venue. As I was getting ready to say, the venue has changed. Okay, they have a backup place because the old Florida Off-Road Park, unfortunately, the landowners are no longer keeping we lost another wheeling spot. But it was a public spot. It was a private, not a public. So it's nothing anybody did that was wrong. No bad. The owner of the property